once again determined that I'm not a threat to national security.
Sunday, and you cruising down Crenshaw in a motherfucking 6'4". Come on, say that shit like you believe it, man. Like it's your word, still that shit. Stop playing around, loosen the fuck up. There you go.
Alright, just got to the place we're staying in. There's like no lights in here, just this one lamp. And then I just found out that there's not one TV, but two. So I can't explain why that is, what purpose that could possibly serve. But there you go, I could watch 2 channels at once. I don't know how I'm gonna do any recording from here. I might have to do it out from the living room at some point, or maybe do it like from the closet, because that's like the one light that's in here that's halfway decent. Pretty weird to record inside of the closet though. But yeah, so I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about kind of what my plan is for tomorrow. If you saw my schedule, you know that I'm playing the Colossus tomorrow, and I'm playing the 10 a.m. flight. I haven't registered yet. I'm gonna get up early tomorrow, head over to the Rio early. It's like a 15-minute walk at most. Yeah, just register then, get some food. But the game plan for the tournament's pretty simple. Make a few hands and hold on for dear life. There's definitely more to what I plan to do than that, but the Colossus is a crazy event. I did play it last year, and it was, I mean, pardon my French, but it was a bit of a shit show. It's like 30-minute levels, and you start with 5K in chips, which, if I'm not mistaken, is 100 bigs. Because I think they started out 25-50, but the next jump is to 50-100. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, you're immediately down to like 50 bigs, and then the level after that is 75-150. So, you know, the value of your starting stack is cut by, 2/3 within 2 levels. So you got to make hands, you got to take more risks, and even if you run above average, that's not enough to necessarily make it through the day. You need to run good. So not complicated. That's my plan. Let's run good. Alright, it's about 8 a.m. Up just a little bit early for the flight, see the Colossus. It's absolutely gorgeous out here. It's like a little over 80 degrees. I've got something like a 10 or 15 minute walk to get over to Rio, which kind of sucks because it's right there. We are very close, but we have to do a hop, skip, and a jump over a couple fences, and that's not what we're here to do. I have to figure out how to get out of this place, staying just down the road. But yeah, like I said last night, the plan today is, I'm effectively using this tournament as a warm-up for other events. I'm gonna get short really quickly unless I run incredibly hot. So it'll be a good, just practice for those kinds of situations. I'll end up at a lot of different stack sizes most likely, so that'll be good. The tournament starts at 10, I believe, and I'm heading over now because apparently registration is an absolute nightmare. I wouldn't know because I've never done same-day registration for this tournament. I've always left early to do it the night before. But last night I was tired, so I just went to the condo. Alright, so I just want to go over a few hands. This isn't going to be, anything with graphics. Just trying to crank out a couple quick things. I don't have bet sizes necessarily. Just kind of want to give you guys the flavor of the day. I did cash in the Colossus on one bullet, but I busted before the end of the day, which means I can fire tomorrow, so I'm just trying to get this out quick, give you guys a quick update with what's been going on, and get to bed. A lot of this tournament for me was picking up a big hand at shit. This bed is on wheels. A lot of this tournament was just picking up hands at the right times. There was a spot where under the gun open shoved, and it was a short stack, maybe 5 to 10 bigs early on in the tournament. Middle position isolation raised, which was like a min 3-bet, and it folded around to me on the button, and I had queens, and I just shoved, and it folded back around to the guy who had isolation raised, and he called all in because he'd already put in like 40% of his stack basically, and I held against pocket 10s and king jack off. So that was really lucky. The guy who ISO raised king jack off normally wasn't really playing a lot of hands, and I wouldn't have expected him to play that hand that way, so I felt like that was pretty fortunate. Had another couple other spots with queens where I knocked out short stacks, and just overall I had hands where I needed them. There were a couple interesting hands that I played. In one hand I opened ace king under the gun. The big blind was the only caller, and we went heads up to the flop. The flop was jack 9-5 with 2 spades, and I have the ace of spades. He checks. I think you could go either way here, but I think that this flop hits the big blind's range much more than it hits mine. And I have 2 overs and a backdoor flush draw. I think it's okay to just check, try to realize some of my equity. So I check back. The turn is the 3 of spades, so it puts the 3rd spade on board. The big blind now tanks for a pretty long time, long enough that I asked him if he had done anything yet, because I wasn't sure. He then cut out some chips and bet close to 3/4 pot, which is pretty big at this point. It was almost double what I bet pre-flop. I think there's merit to 2 of the options. I don't think we can really fold here. I think we just have too much equity usually. I think there's merit to raising. think there's merit to calling. I decided to call here and basically just decide what to do on the river. If I miss, it's a little bit awkward, but sometimes ace king will be good very occasionally. Sometimes I can bluff, so I call. We get what I think is one of the worst cards that we can get. It's not a great card. It's the 10 of diamonds. Bricks our flush. Improves some of the hands that he would bet on the turn this way. He tanks a long time and checks. I just decided to check it back. I didn't think I was necessarily going to be able to get a lot of hands of his to fold. Didn't think I was necessarily going to easily represent much. But I checked back and he had 10-7 off, which I think is a pretty bad defend pre. I played a few interesting hands against one player who was limping his whole range. He was just calling pre-flop. He wasn't really raising. And at first, people were sort of trying to raise when he would limp in, isolation raise, and I tried that once or twice as well. But the thing is, the air just cycled on. So I'm going to move the camera a little closer. The thing is that he was playing a pretty tight range, so even though he's limping his whole range, it doesn't mean his range is weak necessarily. So what I started doing instead of isolation raising is when he was limping in early position, I would over limp like late position with playable hands, with hands that can do well against strong holdings. So there were several spots where he would limp in early position. I would flat like the button or the cutoff, and the small blind and or the big blind would call, and we'd go 3 or 4 ways to the flop. And sometimes I flopped a pair, like second pair or bottom pair. Sometimes I didn't really flop much, but it would just check around to me and I would bet and take it down. This happens 2 or 3 times, and then there's a spot where he limps early position. I over limp with 8-6 suited on the button. Small blind and big blind both call. The flop comes 9-9-8 rainbow, checks to me, and I figure I rate to have the best hand here pretty often. I think the guy who was limping his whole range would probably lead with a hand like 10s or jacks here. It's possible that he wouldn't, but I'm usually going to be ahead. So I bet probably like 35 to 40% of pot, and the big blind and the limper both call, which I thought was pretty weird. I was not happy about it. There is some 9x that the limper could play this way, but I think actually not that much because his range is pretty tight. It's more likely to be some sort of under pair or possibly jacks or 10s that he's playing kind of weird. So they both call. The turn is a king. It seems like really hard for me to get any kind of value when it checks to me, and I don't really want to turn this hand into a bluff. I think there's a lot of better hands I could turn into bluffs, like Jack 10 I could bet again, potentially 6-7, stuff like that. Backdoor flush draws maybe sometimes. And I have some King X I can value bet, and I have a lot of 9X I can value bet, so I don't really need to bet this hand. The river's a brick. I don't remember exactly what the card was, but let's just call it an offsuit 2. It checks to me, and again, it's like I don't really know what kind of value it can really get. I don't know what hands I'd be targeting, so I just check it back, and somehow my hand is good against Queen Jack offsuit of the big blind and the Ace Jack offsuit of the early position limper. So kind of weird hand. There was one hand where I was down pretty short, and this was after we hit the money, but pretty soon after hitting the money. So a competent, looser, regular kind of player open shoved for probably 11 big blinds in middle position. I was on the button with ace 7. I had 10 bigs. I just decided to go with it. I didn't think I was going to get a lot of significantly better spots than this. Now, because I'm on the button, you can maybe make an argument for folding, because I have significantly more hands until the big blind hits, but I just decided to shove. The big blind woke up with ace king and obviously snapped it off. and the middle position opener had king queen. The flop came 7-7-4. Turn was a king. River was a brick. So that was a fortunate more than triple up spot for me, and allowed me to kind of ladder up more than I would have otherwise. Also, quick shout out to Ted, who came up and said hi by the pavilion outside the convention center at the Rio. Said he liked the vlog. Good to meet you, Ted. So far, it's definitely great to cash the Colossus on the first bullet. I am going to play tomorrow, though. I would love to make day 2. Let's keep making more money.
I've already targeted the guys at my table where...
That's handy.
Hello! So I get to be on the mantle! Yay! That's much better than the tight shots that we had.
I'm already registered.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.